and welcome to the Hamilton County Commission staff meeting. I'm going to ask the dais to introduce ourselves. We know it's Halloween, but we are not in costume. These are the real people. These are the real people, ladies and gentlemen. Please introduce yourself.
Christy Rischel, Assistant Clerk.
Leslie Hervey, Clerk to the Board.
Stephanie Summerall Dumas, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. I'm County Commissioner Denise Treehouse.
Jeff Aludo, County Administrator.
Charlie Annis, Prosecutor's Office.
I'm Hamilton County Commission Board President Alicia Reese. Okay, we got an exciting agenda. And we are still having our budget process. Different departments are coming in, talking about their budgets as we are in this budget process. Mr. Aludo, did you want to kick things off, or Mr. Brugan?
I'm happy just to give since we've done this several times now, just to give a brief overview. For those watching at home, we're in the process of preparing for a recommendation to the board, probably coming to the board next week, on the 2024 budget. So in preparation for that, we're having different departments come forward and present their budget requests to the board. Those are the same requests that we will be working on, and as we try to balance the budget from the revenues that we are projecting next year in relation to the requests that we have received. And as the board has been made aware, we do have a gap, a rather sizable gap this year in terms of revenues versus requested expenditures. So it's required our budget staff to go through a lot of concerted conversations with departments to ultimately get to the point where we're balancing, can submit a structurally balanced budget to the board. Today we have two departments. We have human resources and then our economic development areas. I believe Frank Spataro and Sarah Irwin are going to be presenting the human resources budget. I do just want to preface this by saying, so that avoid the question to Frank, the one thing that Frank will not be covering in his budget is the recommended salary increase for 2024. That is a number that the administration is working with the budget office on as we speak. But Frank will cover all the rest of the human resources budget, which is substantial in its own right in terms of the types of things it includes in terms of compensation, benefits, that type of thing. So with that, commissioners, unless there's any questions, I'll turn it over to Mr. Spataro.
Welcome.
Excuse me. Good afternoon, President Reese, Vice President Treehouse, Commissioner Dumas. We appreciate the opportunity to present the 2024 Human Resources budget. Just real briefly, Sarah Irwin's going to co-present with me, but we have Corey Bass in the audience, our Labor and Employee Relations Manager, and Ed Demerit, who's the HRD Supervisor.
So that takes care of all our training, all the internal training for the county.
Thank you.
I wanted to just give you a brief overview of HR department's role and really focus on what's on the right side of the countywide work that we do, and the ones that are most important are employee benefits. We administer the entire benefit insurance program for the county. The HRIS, Human Resource Information System, that's our payroll and personnel system that pays all of us. Unemployment compensation, and risk management for the entire county. And we do have some statutory responsibilities on civil service reporting out of the state code, but those are nominal. The key factors that we want to cover today include recruitment and selection initiatives, workplace culture and engagement work, employee development, investment, and our efficiency in service efforts. And I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, who's going to cover these two items here on the recruitment and selection initiatives.
Good afternoon.
So I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about these two items. This is really just the targeted recruitment efforts. It's just an opportunity for us to spend a little bit more time and effort in advertising for specific positions that we might have available. Historically, we didn't really have to advertise for our positions. We had a plethora of applicants, and over time that has changed as the market has become more competitive for positions. So this just gives us the funding to explore some different opportunities, whether that be advertising on specific job boards based on like industry-based position or boards for specific jobs, or paying to increase the spend. Like for Indeed, you can get a sponsored position, and that would increase the engagement because we would have that job posted kind of at the top of their page for a length of time. So that's really what that initial $25,000 is for. And then the second piece here is the review of the existing recruitment platform that we have available to our potential employees. That's the opportunity we have here, is to explore opportunities for applicants to apply in a way that would really remove barriers for them. Right now, employees or applicants have to apply for every position. They can't just like click submit and have a single applicant profile sort of situation. So that's really what that review is to help eliminate the barriers to getting more applicants to our positions. Moving on to the next slide. Oh, thank you. The workplace engagement and the culture initiatives. This is, again, a couple of different factors, and I'm going to cover the first piece here. One thing that we are really excited about is we are getting ready to launch Kudos, which is an employee engagement and recognition platform. And that platform is going to really allow us to have the framework to start creating a broader sense of community amongst the Board of County Commissioners departments. So we've talked a little bit about this in different positions, but that's really what this is related to. It allows us to increase that engagement. It helps promote our core values, this Kudos platform, and it will allow us to recognize employees. So employees are going to be able to recognize the contributions of others. Leaders are going to be able to recognize the contributions of others, and allowing us to be visible across the organization, but it's all related to core values. And within the platform, each core value has qualities associated with that, and those qualities are things like being kind, or being inclusive, or being fiscally responsible. So things that are important to us in terms of our overall operations as a county. So this is really just an initial step in helping us bring those engagement initiatives and creating that sense of community amongst the Board of County Commissioners departments, who all have very unique purpose, but really all fall under the same umbrella. And you see that sort of little slogan at the bottom of the page here, the care, commit, enhance, and those are really the revised core values that we've come up with as part of this process, basically saying we care about our community, we are committed to providing for our community with integrity, and we are always looking to enhance the services that we provide to our community. So that's sort of the umbrella, and then there's these qualities that lie underneath there. And this platform will actually kick off in just a couple of weeks for the Board of County Commissioners employees, and we're really excited to see that. And this platform will also allow us to bring things like affinity groups to our employee population, something that we haven't really had a way to bring that out. So that's why it's part of this DEIB and employee recognition component. And I'm gonna pass it off to Frank to talk about the labor relations.
Thanks, Sarah. We have a real complicated and complex labor relations environment here. We now have 19 collective bargaining agreements. We just got a new one, or we're in the process of getting a new bargaining unit, the Carpenters. So 10 of the 19 are under the Board of County Commissioners. 9 are outside, but under various elected officials and boards and commissions. So one of the increases that we're asking for is $55,000 to increase our assistance from our outside consultant on negotiations and arbitrations. And we see this work is expanding, and it's been some time since there's been an increase in this area. But we feel that this is something that we need to address. And secondly, we have a new position request for a labor relations specialist that will assist Corey Best under the Board of County Commissioners to assist her in preparing for negotiations and handling grievances and employee complaints, and then also processing unemployment. She's currently doing that work, and it's really work that could be and should be done at a level below manager. So we feel that will open her up and make her available for some more appropriate work at her level. Just a note here, right now, 650 of our 1,170 employees are in a collective bargaining unit. So that represents 56% of the population, and that number is growing. Next area is our sorry about that, is our employee development investment. And we've made significant advancements in this area. We're asking for an additional $50,000 for tuition reimbursement. We have seen the number of employees applying for tuition reimbursement nearly double from last year to this year, from 21 to 41. And the number of colleges and universities who are attending has increased from 7 in 2022 to 10 in 2023. And so far, the amount of 2023 tuition that's been reimbursed, pre-approved, or dispersed has equaled just a little over $200,000. So we're expecting an increase in that activity. Just as an aside, we also have partnership programs with a number of local universities and provide our employees with additional opportunities to attend college at discounted rates that they can also apply their tuition reimbursement. So quite a benefit for our employees. The additional position that's being requested for the HRD section is to help manage this tuition reimbursement. It's currently being managed by Ed Demerit, the supervisor, and again, like the labor position, I would like to free Ed up to do some more work that's appropriate at his level. And the new position would work to expand our educational partnership program that I just mentioned with the local universities. And then also one of the things I'm really excited about, we're ready to deploy a mentoring program to the departments under the board. JFS has actually has one that's in place right now, and we are excited about having or providing those opportunities to the rest of our employees under the board. And this new position would be responsible for administering that. There's some administrative tasks involved in terms of matching up mentors and mentees and in monitoring and being available to assist those that are in the program. So go back to Sarah here on efficiency and service.
The last point we wanted to make is really just about some of the efficiency processes that we're going through internally within HR. So the first item you notice doesn't have a price tag associated with that. That's really just to call out the fact that we've implemented a paperless employee personnel file. That's something that we did the early part of this year. And alongside that, we're doing some other internal processes, taking the things that people historically did via paper and emailed them to us as that transitioned over COVID, and just really making them actually a paperless process. So that's not necessarily a cost associated with it, but it's just things that we're doing to help provide our services more efficiently. The other two items here are really strictly related to the fact that we have internal databases that we created about 20 years ago to help manage this work, and they are just simply outdated and not supported any longer. And this is really just our avenue to try to find platforms that exist that can help us manage that work in a way that is going to be supported going forward. And that's really managing our employee positions under the Board of County Commissioners, civil service reporting. And also the case management is really related to like employee labor relations associated cases, not what you would traditionally think of. And I think that's it from me.
The next slide is just basically a recap showing the distribution of financial increases regarding whether they're personal or non-personal services. And you can see that breakout there, the personnel, or the two positions discussed, as well as the fellowship, of which some of the cost of that is being picked up by the Season Good Foundation, which is very nice of them to do that. If you have any questions on the last slide is the refers to the compensation that County Administrator Aludo referred to at the beginning of the discussion, giving a recap of what's occurred for the last 3 years. All right. Any questions?
Thank you, Frank. I'm going to open it up to Vice President Driehaus.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Two quick questions for you. In the recent past, this board has started some programs to try to recruit and retain employees here at the county. One is tuition reimbursement. And so you mentioned that. So you've got people participating in that, and the trend line is going up there. So I think that's the good news. The other one is the parental leave policy. Do you have a sense of how many are taking advantage of that program in the county?
I don't have numbers, but I do know that it's a very popular program. We do have a number of males and females that have participated in the program and are participating. And I'd be happy to provide you with the numbers that show the participation, but we do have a number that have taken advantage of that program.
Yeah, I would love to see that, and then the cost associated with that. As it stands today, I would like to see that information too. I just am keen on these two things because we've pretty recently implemented them, and I want to make sure that the employees are taking advantage of these programs. And then my last question is just about hiring in general. So post-COVID, everyone's struggling to recruit and retain employees. Can you tell me what the trend looks like currently by way of hiring in the county, and if the trend line's going up, down, or is it flat?
I believe that the hiring is has moved in a very positive direction, caused in large part by the market compensation adjustments that were made back in 2022. We're finding that we have stronger applicant pools, and we are doing some other things. For instance, in Job and Family Services, it's paying a fee to keep their job listings located at or near the top. Like if you go to Indeed, when you click on there, the first thing you'll see are Hamilton County positions as opposed to being located further down in the queue. I feel that we're getting good, strong applicants for our positions, and driven largely by our salaries, and then where it's appropriate, being able to offer remote work, which is still a strong consideration for a lot of applicants.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dumas.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Just a few questions. I know Sarah has said earlier it's a little harder now to recruit new staff. It wasn't that hard before, and I'm really trying to figure that one out because our benefits are so good.
Well, I think that in part of that might be some of the difficulties she alluded to in the way that people apply. And that's one of the things we're trying to make easier for people, because right now, if you apply for 3 jobs, you have to fill out 3 applications. You can't just put all your information in and click 3 boxes.
Right. That was going to be my next question, and you just explained it. So you were saying you can't just pick the one. So I'm glad you guys are working on that. We passed some legislation as it relates to domestic violence, and if you're in a situation where you need to be out or have some time off, that we passed that legislation. Have we had people take advantage of that, or?
I'm aware of a few instances where people have used that particular kind of leave. And one of the unique things about that leave is that, unlike family medical leave or parental leave, it applies the first day you're hired, as opposed to any kind of waiting period.
That's great. Yeah.
So they don't happen often, which is good. But when they do, we have a policy or we have a program in place to help them take care of their personal business without suffering any adverse actions at work.
That's great. Yeah. And you mentioned about there are 19 labor agreements, 10 are under the board. it just speaks to the fact that we believe in unions. I mean, you know, it's easy to try not to have one, or I'm a union person myself, but that we believe that if people want to form a union, they have the opportunity to do that. And I think that since I've been here, we've been very fair to our unions. And then I was going to ask you about the DEIB and employee recognition, which is great, the kudos program, but does DEIB, is that a specific program itself? What does that stand for?
No, it's not really a specific program. What we've done is is incorporated a number of initiatives in our existing policies. For example, we amended the personnel policy manual to require an effort by interviewing panels to seek diversity, and they are either obtain diversity, or in the event that they can't, document the reasons for which they couldn't. We're monitoring pay equity. I monitor hire statistics. You know, where are we in terms of hiring various populations? So we do a lot of work in the area, but incorporated into our everyday duties, more or less, so that you know, we can keep a sharp eye on it, and we can advise departments where we might see some efforts falling short, or you know, the numbers need to be addressed, and whatever those might be.
Okay, so what does DEIB stand
Oh,
for?
I'm sorry, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Okay. And,
Belonging.
okay, oh, belonging, okay, great. You also mentioned about an additional labor relations specialist.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, how many do we have currently?
We currently have 2 of them are assigned to the HR complement that works exclusively at Job and Family Services. We have none over currently that work under the board, the non-JFS departments under the board. So this is going to be this would be a huge advantage and a huge benefit to the department to be more responsive, and to allow Corey to do some work that she isn't doing now because she's
Yes.
doing unemployment compensation.
Yeah, okay, Corey's awesome. Okay, the mentorship program that you were talking about is just out of the box thinking, and I've found that, and I will say, since you've come, because I wasn't here before then, but you guys and Sarah and all the ones that your staff that work are really thinking where are the gaps, and I think that's a great program to have.
Well, and it complements the other things we're doing right now that we have done and we're expanding, and those are succession plans. So mentoring helps out in the succession. It's really a DEIB effort because it's providing exposure and training to anyone who wants to participate. And you know, we're just trying to make sure that we have a good bench in place when people like myself decide to move on.
And then tuition reimbursement, you're asking for 50,000 more. You said 200,000 has been spent about right now. Is that primarily the nurses? We just started that program. Do you-
Ed can probably speak to that in a little more detail, but I believe that they're spread out over
all over the
a variety of academic programs that are related to their work as a county employee.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. The paperless internet process is great. We don't need all that paper, but I was just wondering, I don't remember you guys asking for additional money for computers or to be able to get that started. Did you just use what you had to?
Yeah, well, we really didn't need computers, but the software, we were able to make an initial investment, I believe, with existing funds.
Okay. Okay, and civil service position management at 25,000. So what is that, like $15 an hour? Or that's kind of
I'm sorry.
the civil service position that you're asking, position for management on your efficiency and surface efforts.
That's actually a software program. It's not a position. That is just software program to manage position management. So we internally in HR have an internal database that I actually created in like 2008 that we need something more sophisticated than that at this point to be able to, it's how we track FLSA status of positions, the classified status of positions, whether they're funded or not, things like that. So once the budget gets approved, we manage that internally in HR to make sure that we know what jobs can be filled and posted and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So that's what, and that's really just getting a software to be able to do that for.
Okay. And then software for the case management also.
Correct.
Okay, let me see. I think I had, you mentioned about Season Good decided to fund the fellowship program.
Yes.
And I just want to thank you, Season Good, if you're watching. That was really good. Did we solicit them or how did that happen?
I'm not sure how because the relationship actually happened or occurred through the budget office with Cheryl Floyd. And, but I went to a reception probably about 2 months ago, and they were just nuts about our fellowship program. Yeah, I talked to the person who actually initially read our proposal. He said, boy, you guys are on it, so
Yeah, great.
it's great.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And just following up on the fellowship program, super, super excited. Thank you. I know I want to thank my colleagues, because I wanted to have this fellowship type program, and it's so great now that it's funded, because I was worried. I was like, uh-oh, is the fellowship program going to last? The only thing I would say on the fellowship program I think would be great to add where there would be because I was kind of looking at what we did at the state kind of as a model. I think we might be the only county that has this type of model. So if that's true, we love to put that on our other first as Hamilton County, what we've been doing. But to have an orientation at the beginning, maybe they could come in and we can, all three of us can say hello and welcome them and answer any questions they may have.
Well, we actually have our first fellow is actually working, and part of her rotation is going to be working with your individual offices.
Oh, good. Okay.
So you'll have an opportunity to meet her and give her assignments.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Super, super awesome. But I think that's that's really good to get them into the county and see that there's a lot of opportunities. You don't have to be a political science major. We need people at every level. So I'm super excited about that. I had a question about where does the healthcare piece come in this? Is that in your budget or is that?
That's in it's in the human resources budget, managed by Sarah.
Okay.
And the self-insured health fund and other ancillary expenses that are related to healthcare and other benefits as well.
Okay, because I know that's expected to go up.
It's actually in the it's part of Frank's responsibility overall, but it's actually part of the medical self-insurance fund, which is funded in Department 16, which is why you don't see those figures on our slideshow. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
Gotcha. Department 16. Okay. What's Department 16? We have a 15, a 13, a 12? Now we're talking John Brugan talk, I call it.
We do have a 12, but there's no 13.
Good.
Department 16 is, I think that's non-departmentals. It's which, isn't that a great name for a department? A department that's not a department. It's a catch-all for things that stretch across departments like medical insurance. So
Okay.
rather than budgeting a little bit in each piece, in each department, it spans across all of them.
Okay, that's great. I just know that you're the one that meets with us about the negotiations, so I didn't know if we should be looking for it in this model. My last thing, I guess, is just asking about the part where you talk about more employees, because we do have this board, I think, has put together a good package through you all, HR department, parental leave, which was historic. I know Vice President Driehaus had led that, and also some of the other things that Commissioner Dumas had talked about, that now we've got all these different things. We also have tuition reimbursement and all of that. But even with that, it's still difficult to get employees. And you mentioned there's a rising, because of COVID, people figured, I've been working from home. I kind of like this home thing. Where do we go from there? Are we doing that, or is that not something?
Now, there are still quite a few employees that are working what probably is a hybrid model where they spend 2 to 3 days in the office and a couple of days working remote, or vice versa. I mean, it all depends on the nature of the work that needs to be performed, and departments really are able to make their own call. We don't administer anything centrally, other than, if they are working remote, we have some forms and some procedures that they have to follow in terms of, the use of their computer and the things that they can and can't do. But it's really it's a department by department, position by position call. I personally, but in human resources, we have a number of people that work remote. They're on a hybrid schedule, or they work that type of schedule, and quite frankly, it works out for them. They like it. I'm afraid that if I imposed a 5-day requirement, I'd probably lose a couple of them, and they're great staff, and the supervisors of those employees are able to determine what days. There's some days or some weeks when people have to come in 5 days. Depends on the nature of the work. So we're at least able to advertise that we have that ability where it's appropriate, and it's still, I believe, still a big draw in terms of, is somebody going to work where there is no remote work, or are they going to come to a place where there's either remote work or a hybrid schedule? And I think we're well placed there.
Gotcha. And on the employee recognition, is that the event that we have every year outside, or is that something different?
Well, the employee recognition,
Or that we started. I won't say every year. We just started it last year and this year.
that was an outgrowth of the Employee Advisory Committee,
Right.
and it's turned out to be just fantastic. But in terms of like employee recognition and Employee of the Year awards and that type of recognition, we've been trying to kind of the philosophy that everybody's an Employee of the Year. And so we're trying to remodel and reform that program so that recognition is given on a wider basis. And it's certainly going to improve with the new kudos, is going to allow us to do a lot more in terms of recognition. But for instance, last year, supervisors provided each of their employees with a handwritten thank you note, thanking them for the work that they did. It went over just unbelievably. So that's kind of the focus, as opposed to identifying a person or a small group of people as Employees of the Year. So that's where we are right now.
Gotcha. And then my last question, and I don't know if this is for you or Jeff. Certainly, everyone, all of our employees are appreciated, right? But there are some that go above and beyond. It's kind of like we've gotten to the point where you go to a restaurant. I got to the point where I say, I'm just tipping you because you showed up. Whereas before, we were tipping people because they just went. You get a bigger tip because you just were exceptional. And I don't want to lose that, because otherwise people say, well, I'm just going to do, why would I do all this work? I'm getting paid the same amount of money, whether I do something extraordinary or if I do something ordinary. So I didn't know if that's in here, or is that something that would be coming?
Yeah.
You had mentioned it. I don't know. I don't know what the right word is, because I'm come from more of an entrepreneurial background, but some kind of, I don't know if the right word is bonus, or what do you call it? You call it something else.
There could be, I think, a couple of different models on this, but when we think about it from a compensation perspective, we're talking mostly pay for performance, and that could take on a couple of different forms. It could include, like you said, commissioner bonuses. It could include just how we structure the increases to the base, et cetera. But you're exactly right that when we get into the habit of just doing the same amount on the base for everybody, there's a time and a place for that. But there's also a time and a place to recognize that, just as you said, I don't know, I could say it any better, that people who are going way above and beyond lose that incentive after a while if they say, I'm getting the same amount no matter what I do, no matter what effort I put out. So the county had been historically very steeped in the ethic of pay for performance. Then we went through that period of time where we just didn't give raises at all. We came out of that and we felt it was probably necessary to give standard, essentially COLAs, right, on the base, because people had not received increases in so long. But last year was the first time we started trying to get back into some sort of pay for performance. A portion of the increase was linked to performance. This year, just as a bit of a teaser, I think we've talked about this before. I think you can expect that what you'll get from me as a recommendation this year will even go further in that regard on pay for performance. And the board may wish to go a different route as well. So that's something we can talk about after the recommendation's out and see where you want to go. But I couldn't agree more that we have to continue to move back towards that, assuming that we're going to continue to give increases and keep up with compensation.
Yep, and I just want to add real quick, some of the bargaining units, not all of them, but some bargaining units have also brought up this topic of higher performing employees getting more. So it's a well recognized situation where employees naturally who go that extra mile want to get some recognition for it. So if we can start getting those in bargaining agreements, that would be really good. So.
Awesome. Anything else, Vice President Driehaus? Commissioner Dumas?
I just had one additional comment. When we talk about remote work or hybrid work, I read a lot, and the latest research indicates that the people that are doing either one of them are happier, less stressed, and more productive. So I don't know if you guys look at that or read the most recent stuff.
I read a lot about it.
Okay, yeah.
And I think we see the same advantages here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good. That's all I have.
Convinced of that.
All right. Thank
you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Our next budget presentation is economic development.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
I'm happy to be here today to give you an overview of the proposed economic development budget for 2024. Pull it up. Thank you. So the proposed economic development budget for 2024 continues to leverage partnerships to support the board's priorities and goals when it comes to economic development. This includes our strong partnerships and agreements with Alloy, the Port, and Ready, as well as continuing to partner with communities on their revitalization efforts. I was just talking this morning, I used to call our economic development program the three-legged stool of Alloy, the Port, and Ready, but really now it's a solid chair with 4 legs because we've added this big piece with community partnerships. In addition, our proposed economic development budget does build upon the success of the Office of Small Business in terms of additional staff capacity and another program I'll talk about in just 1 minute. So the changes to the 2024 budget compared to 2023, as you can see on the slide, it's a slight increase of our request of about $400,000. And the increase is due to 2 reasons primarily. The first is we do have a recommended increase to our agreement with Alloy, and this is primarily to expand the staffing capacity for our Office of Small Business. I do not want to steal Greg Forte's thunder because I know he's coming up after me to talk about the success of the Office of Small Business to date, but there's a real opportunity here with additional staffing to serve more businesses and to serve them better. So that's the main increase to the Alloy agreement, as well as some small increases in their administrative costs and staffing costs to run the traditional economic development programs that they do for the county. The second increase is a new program that the board requested that we looked at during the year 2023. And this is a program to help with property ownership for businesses. The goal of this program is to increase the number of small businesses that own their own commercial real estate. So we are requesting for this new program $300,000 for a down payment program through the existing 504 loan program that Alloy administers. And this will create a pool for small businesses to access match dollars to help increase the number of first-time owner-occupied commercial real estate businesses. So basically what we're looking at is a proposed 1-to-1 match for the first $50,000 of a down payment, again, involving an owner-occupied property. So other than these changes, The rest of the economic development budget is fairly, recommended budget is fairly static compared to the 2023 budget. So again, you'll see here Alloy with about a $250,000 increase in their contract. The port remains the same. The site readiness program through the port, again, this is, they have to request funding for this, remains the same, $2 million. And again, Ready, who helps us access the Jobs Ohio programming at $250,000. And again, in terms of our partnership with communities, continuation of the community revitalization grant, we're looking at launching the storefront grant. We wanted to do that this year, but we had some staffing issues, as you all are aware of. We talked about the small business property ownership. We still have the large and small event grants, and again, a small business event and pitch night scheduled for 2024. We have the community impact grant. We're looking at some changes to that based on what we learned, but still allocating a large sum of money to 1 to 2 communities to help them with their revitalization efforts. We anticipate this program being modified a bit to include staffing or consulting services to really help a community that doesn't have the capacity to identify projects and to help the community see those projects through. And they could also apply for grant dollars through that community impact program. And then we also have funding for the TID for bike trails, and then of course our annual contribution to OKI. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll open it up. Vice President Driehaus.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. Is there more to come in this presentation related to the small business piece?
There is a presentation by Greg Forte today on just the update on the Office of Small Business.
So not part of I thought it was part of the budget presentation.
Sorry.
So I note that the requested amount is a very small increase related to the amount last year, which makes it easier to not have many questions. But I do want to say that I'm very grateful to Alloy, who I know is in the room, for the work that they're doing related to small businesses and to startups and incubators, and always referring people over to the campus over in Norwood when people are thinking about, how do I get started? Once I'm started, are there storefronts available? And so I think we do a pretty good job of connecting from one phase to the next. So I just want to thank you all for your work. I know you're way in the peanut gallery in the room, but thank you for that. So I really don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dumas.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. Well, let's look at the $300,000 provide down payment assistance, which is a loan for SBA 504 loan program. And I know when I first bought my first house that if you didn't have money for a down payment, you really couldn't buy the house. You didn't qualify. And so what we're doing is setting up these people with $50,000 up to $50,000 for a down payment. But my assumption then is who's going to look at their ability to continue to pay loan payments? Who does that, Alloy?
It is all through Alloy's 504 loan program, yes.
Okay.
So it's really nice. It's incorporated into their existing criteria and eligibility.
Okay. So if you have a big intensive, I guess I'm looking at you guys back, both of you guys are writing or sleeping or something. No, I'm just kidding. So it's pretty intensive to make sure that they qualify before the $50,000 is given to them for a down payment.
Correct.
Okay. Now I'm looking on the line items for economic development. Now the storefront, the $300,000 would specifically do what, Holly?
That program, we would actually work with communities and their business districts to help identify, similar to like a facade improvement program is another way to look at this program, where we would provide a grant to a community to administer that to their small businesses. We've done a few grants recently with the city of Sharonville, for example, in Norwood, to provide that type of assistance, and it seems to have an impact. It's tough to administer. Don't get me. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that, but it does provide a nice level of service to small businesses within a business district.
Okay, thank you. And the small business property ownership, the $300,000, we're helping small businesses to purchase properties or pay their mortgage, or what is it? What is that?
That's similar to the program you initially asked about. That's the small business program through the 504 program. The loan
Oh, the
program.
same thing, okay. The large tourism grants, 1.5 million, it was my understanding that we wanted to help those entities like Blink and the Music Festival get off their feet and push them forward to be successful. And we've done that for 2 years. Is it 2 or 3?
We've done it for 2
third.
years now.
2 years, okay. And I'm just wondering, I'm just throwing this out, when do we stop doing it? I mean, we were trying to make sure they didn't fail, then the next year, make sure that they're really doing great. And so where do we stop is my question. The small, I'm not wanting you to answer it, but I just want my colleagues to think about it. There has to be a stopping point. But anyway, in the small event grants, the 250 is something that I had brought up to my colleagues that would go all over the county, and it was how much? 10,000.
It was up to 25,000.
Okay.
We didn't know, not all of them received the full
20. Okay. And so it was to cover the whole county and to make sure that those small entities that don't have a lot of money, that include residents that come out to enjoy these, to promote unity and community and all that, would be able to do that. And we just did that. This would be our second year?
We've done it one time. This was our first year.
Okay.
Yep.
But this would be our second
Correct.
year? Okay. And that makes sense to me. So I'm just questioning the large event grant again, and I'm also the revitalization group. I'm just really glad that's made such an impact in our county. So that's where I am right now on it. Okay, that's all I have.
Madam President, may I respond to the large event grant piece? Because
Yes.
that was my initiative a couple of years ago.
Yes.
So I do want to respond to that.
Yes.
Just to provide some clarity. So the idea behind that was for the county to partner in big events that bring economic development to the region, that create room nights, that create tourism opportunities, that bring people into the county and generate revenue. So that was kind of the idea behind it. And so some of the organizations that used it were putting on the music festival, Blink, the Oktoberfest was one of them. I think the Flying Pig got some. So it depends year by year. Different organizations apply for those dollars, but they do have to meet this criteria of bringing economic development and revenue into the county. So that was the point of it. I just wanted to provide some clarity there. And so from my perspective, I would hope that the county would always be a partner in trying to continue to bring those kinds of events here, because what it does, it's not a make or break so much as helping to add something to those events so that they bring even more revenue into the county. So for instance, with the music festival, they talk about the type of talent that they are able to attract with additional revenue dollars to spend. And so that's kind of gives you a flavor for what the goal was.
Thank you. If I could comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the clarity, and I'm very much aware of the purpose of the grant. That's why I supported it each year, but we had never done it before. And as I said, this would be the third year. Of course, economic development and an increase in our revenue is great. But for me, when do you stop doing it? It was the two that we have funded have been doing fine until the pandemic. So that's why we kicked in the money. So for me, it's like, when do we stop? Especially when we talk about a possible 40 million gap in our budget. I know we're looking at other areas of cutting. So just that we consider where will we need to cut? What are the essential things that we need in this county? And what are the things that we're trying to be good neighbors and do? And that's my concern.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I guess I'll start at that point. I wasn't going to start at that point, but this budget is called Economic Development Budget. And in this economic development budget, we have ongoing $800,000 that we give to the Port Authority. It's no RFP. It's in the budget, $800,000 for their operations. Not just operations for us, but their operations, whatever it costs to pay their salaries and so forth. We give more than the city of Cincinnati. Number two, and we do it every year since I've been here, and it was done before I guess I got here. Then we give them $2 million for site readiness. And there's been some times when there was no site readiness, but we put $2 million and we hold it, and we do it every year. Coming from tourism myself, tourism is economic development. So I support the large tourism grants. In fact, I support putting the entities in the budget like we put the Port Authority. We can do the Port Authority every year, $800,000 just for their operations. And then we say, okay, now we're gonna give you $2 million to go buy some land, even though they haven't identified the land in advance. But we do it every year. So that's $2.8 million every single year without any questions under economic development. Tourism grants, let's bring out I'll bring out Music Festival and Blink. Music Festival, we probably couldn't even do the convention district without the hotel revenue. We just did a big thing with the hotel revenue to pay for convention center. Well, what was one of the biggest events, and I'm not talking a one-time event, I'm talking every year, bringing in $107 million in economic impact every single year. And then just this year, we brought in $9.6 million just from the festival weekend because we charged the highest rates. Majority of people that come, 98% are African American, and we're charging the highest hotel rates of the year. And we don't do it just one year. We do it every year. Every year we're collecting. And this year we collected $9.6 million total in revenue. So yeah, it should be every year. I hate they wasn't every year, because if they were to leave, that's $9.6 million gone. Now, what I don't like is that this number comes in majority African-American consumers, and we put it in there and we start building garages, and we start building, expanding convention centers, and not one dime goes back to anything in the African-American community. So this time, I think it's great because we have a Cincinnati Black Music Walk of Fame now that is connected with the history and bringing tourists in as well. So my point is, if the Port Authority is 1.8 every single year, and we ain't got to book a hotel, and I'm not saying they don't bring anything in, but $800,000 goes to their operations, not into bringing something specific. And then we give them $2 million, so $2.8 million for the Port Authority. I don't see why these large event grants where you have Blink that's bringing in thousands and thousands of people, and the festival who has a track record. Now, if the festival was to leave, you lose this $9.6 million. You lose these high hotel rates. Yeah, you might get one concert in a year that has it. I'm talking about year after year after year after year. And it says it had the highest economic impact of any ongoing festival. So I'm for things that's going to bring in money. And I don't mind putting something toward that. And that's why on this particular line item, now I would want it to be specific, to be honest. If Port Authority is specific, I think it should be specific. I don't have a problem with that. But also in that grant for the music festival also came a small grant for, it was more than that. They had the music festivals, they had the Festival 513, which was a smaller festival that would be kicked out if, has been down here for years. But the world has changed now. We're in competition. We can't sit back and say, oh, they're gonna come every year. Even Black Tech Week now has put out an RFP, and they want $1.5 million to stay. And they just getting started. So why would we let a music festival that's in our stadium, in a stadium that we're paying for, and it's empty every other day except for the bingo season and maybe one concert a year we get, and the music festival? I want more concerts coming up in there. I want more events. In fact, somebody contacted me about the WWE Festival, and Cleveland's trying to get it in their stadium, and they want to know why we ain't getting it down here, why we're not fighting for it. So I support these grants. Now, I would want to be more specific so it doesn't take as long to get them. But $9.6 million in hotels, $107 million every single year in economic impact. I don't want to lose that. And we got Louisville they're on our tail. They built some kind of stadium, and they're trying to get what we got. They're trying to knock us out the box. So I do support this. But moving on to the small business and the ownership, I wanted to get some clarity on that. I thought in the last budget, because this is one of the things I had pushed for, is this the one? I thought we had 500,000 that we had put to the side for ownership, land ownership, and specifically the fact that we have not one Black-owned building in downtown Cincinnati. Got a lot of renters, and if the landlord goes on the rent, it wipes out the whole ecosystem of Black-owned businesses. And I know we were trying to figure out something. I know we might have to go under the small business, but is this the same money?
It would be the same, under the same purpose, correct?
Okay, and I thought it was 500,000 we had voted on and put to the side and held.
I double check that.
Can you double check that? Because we voted on it, we've held it for 2 years because we couldn't.
Yeah.
We were trying to get the paperwork and all of that. But I want to make sure that's the number. And if that is, I'd like to have the number that we voted and passed unanimously. I'd like to put that number with it. I think that's critical to putting us in a position to be #1 in Hamilton County for small businesses. And I think it's because these businesses, they don't get the same abatements. Every time somebody else comes, they got abatements, they got all these tools, they got tax credits, all government tools to help them. And they buy up all of, they own Over the Rhine, they own the West End, they own all these. And the little guy, or little woman, their small business, they can't own nothing. All they can do is go and rent. And I've run into people, and I've sent them to Jeff, and he's met with a lot of them. They have the ability to own, but not allowed, because the people we've given our government tools to various organizations, 3CDC, et cetera. We give them government tools. That's how they're getting these properties. And they're telling the little people, no, you can't buy, you can't own. So this kind of came out of those businesses that have reached out and trying to so we put a placeholder, didn't know how we were going to do it. So I think I'm definitely interested to see this SBA component. And I want to diversify the ownership. And it's a difference when you go from renting to owning. I'm not talking about a house. I saw my parents go from rent and downtown Cincinnati. They wanted them in there. Then they started being business doing good. Then they said, oh, we're going to up the rent. We're going to get you out of here. And they said, no, we're going to go own. And I got to see it as a teenager, what ownership looked like of a major commercial property that they had bought. So I am in favor of that. The other thing I wanted to say on here, the Office of Small Business, which we'll talk about later, I'm anxious to hear what has transpired. I'm very excited that we have an Office of Small Business. But we had our kickoff for Small Business Day. Where is that on here?
Yes, so we have proposed $50,000 for another small business event. It may look differently than the one we did in May, because we learned a lot from that. I think it was incredibly successful. Don't get me wrong. So we will continue to provide funding for a small business event, as well as a pitch night, again, to help with small businesses expand their business. So it's $50,000 for 2 events for next year at minimum.
So 25 and 25? Is that what you're saying?
I like to be a little flexible. It could be
I got a problem
30,
with that.
20.
I got a problem with that because we got in the budget passed $50,000 for a pitch night, and we had also funding for the Small Business Day, which I want to make sure when things are successful, I want to stay successful. I don't want to get down to some little workshops. I just came from some different, where everybody has a little workshop. We had 1,000 businesses show up and actually got help, and people been bragging about, because there's always there, everybody's got a little thing over here and a meet, I don't want no meet and greets. I mean, these are businesses. And I don't know, I just take that personal, because when it comes to businesses, we always go into programs. And then everybody running the program is getting paid. But if you're a small business, you go to something, it better be real, because you don't have an automatic check. So what we had was real, it worked. I'd like to stay on that. And I would like to make sure our budget reflects that. And then the pitch night was supposed to happen this year, which was $50,000 that we all voted on. And I just don't want to have these things. The administrator asked all of us to put our own, put our budgets together, and it's a give and take. But once we come to a conclusion, what I don't like is when we come to a conclusion, I want to make sure the things that I put in there, just like my colleagues, are actually implemented. I don't want to come back and my stuff had to be double questioned, triple questioned, because that's what we do now. In this process, we question everything, and then we decide, hey, this is what we're doing. So what I had said, because we had an employee that left us, we wasn't able to do the $50,000 this year. Now, that don't mean next year we cut my $50,000 that I had negotiated. We not negotiated, but you had come to each of us and we had agreed, because I agreed on some other things and they agreed on some of my things. So I have a question about why this now is not a $50,000 for the pitch component, because we had $50,000 for the pitch and we had a number for the other.
I'd like to double check that. I thought it was 50,000 for both events total. Yeah, so I can double check that.
Yeah. Can you get the resolution? Later, you have it in office.
Yeah, I can check and get back to you.
Yeah, well, that's very important, because then it gets me in a dicey situation. Now I got to renegotiate what we already, then I got all these questions coming at me when we did all that last year.
Yeah, and as I said, the small business event was wildly successful. We have every intent to do a similar event just as wildly successful. Obviously, we won't have small business grants because ARPA dollars. So every intent, we've already met this morning with Greg Forte talking about another event next year. So very clear, hear the board loud and clear on that. The pitch event, again, we were without staff for 6 months. That's why it did not happen this year.
Yeah, no, and let me say this. I was understanding of that. Yeah. And I said, but let them get my understanding of it to now get me in a pickle with my colleagues to renegotiate something that I just want to put it out to my colleagues. $50,000 is in the budget this time, right now. And I was the one that said, if you can't pull it off this year, don't lose my $50,000 from this year. I want 50, and then I want the 50 that I got to negotiate for this year. I don't want to take my 50 from last, because we're not doing that for nobody else. Their stuff is continuing. So I just want to, I'm for these items, I just want to make sure the numbers are matching up to the numbers that I had thought we had. But other than that, I love all the stuff that we have on here, like community impact grants and all the things that we're doing that you have on here. I just want to make sure we got the numbers right.
Absolutely.
And I wanted my colleagues to know, because we don't get to talk to each other, that I told them, okay, 50,000, we couldn't do it this year because we had an employee that left us. I'm willing to do that, but I want that rolled over. And that should not impact my new ask of the 50,000. Because I was going to ask for, what happens is what's usually in the budget, according to what the administrator said, he keeps it in there unless we want to take it out. So that would give me less than 50. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get the 50,000.
Yeah, and I was just going to weigh in if you don't mind.
Yeah,
my understanding too is that if something's in, we've all agreed to it in a previous year, it stays in unless two of us decide to pull it out.
Yeah.
Right. So this is clear evidence of that, because we've all got some input on these various items. I do want to comment to the port and the site readiness piece. I want to say that I support these dollars because the port is the entity that is creating the space for businesses to come in and jobs to come into the county. And we've had some recent success. Cynthia Booth comes to mind up just North Central, and some of the other properties that they've been able to kind of put together to allow for either light industry or for whatever kind of employment to come into the county. The site readiness money was especially important because the state pulled back on their site readiness money through the Brownfield program when we were state representatives. And it really tied the hands of anybody that was doing economic development because we didn't have the resources as a community to say to the developer, we will remediate that site for you so that there's no risk and you can move on to it and know that it's clean and then start doing whatever you need to do to build the business. And so that's part of the reason the site readiness money was in there, was to make sure that we had properties that were ready to go, because if you talk to the port or Ready or the chamber or anybody else, they are always recruiting for businesses to come in, but the problem is we don't always have sites ready for different sizes of parcels for different kinds of industry. And so from my vantage point, that site readiness money, while it doesn't get used every year because there's not an opportunity to use it every year, I do think it's important just to get us poised and ready. When a business comes and says, I'd like to move to Hamilton County, we say, oh, we've got a site ready for you, and no remediation necessary, it's ready to go. And that's what this was intended to do. So I just, again, wanted to say that that's why this is in here. I've supported this in the past, and that's the importance of it from my vantage point.
No, I appreciate that. I wanted to point out when we say, are we going to keep doing something? I wanted to point out that this is one of the things that we are doing. My issue on the port piece is, and it's no secret, it just seems, I'm not for monopolies. That's been my issue with some of, it's not that I'm against, 3CDC doing some things, but I'm against a monopoly. So when I look at, we're gonna pay the most to the port for operations, $800,000. Then we turn around and we give you basically the money to buy land, which we just heard that there, what are we gonna do with these small businesses? Questions about them buying the land. So we give them operations, we give them money to buy the land, then we turn around and they got a contract to do a land bank where you can put it in the land bank and don't pay no taxes. And I just look at that as 1, 2, 3. There's no checks and balances. Who's checking? Who's the check and balances on this? We taxpayer money to give them the operations, taxpayer money to give them to buy the land, and then taxpayer money to run a land bank where you don't have to pay any. So you determine if you want to pay taxes on it. That's been my only thing. It's nothing personal. And so when I saw it, when they asked about how long we're going to do tourism grants at $1.5 million, I'm just saying we're in here $800,000, $2 million, $2.8 million. That don't even include, of course, the land bank contract. And then, of course, we get the funding and we pass it over to the land bank. So that's been my only thing is a checks and balances, no matter who you are, where is the checks and balances? But I'm not challenging necessarily that today. What I am challenging is making sure that these were the numbers that we came up with, and making sure that those numbers are accurate. And if they are, I have no problem with it.
I'll be sure to check on those. Thank you.
Thanks.
If I could just, on that point, and I think this there's a bit of board direction that would be helpful here as well, on the issue of rolling dollars over. I think it would also from an administrative perspective, I think one of the things we want to look at, and the board I'm sure concurs with, is we want to take a look at what the expected cost is to do that program the next year. Mm-hmm. So if, for instance, if there's a program that didn't happen this year, but we want to make sure that we do it next year, we want to make sure that we're budgeting the amount that we expect for that program to be. Now, if the board thinks we didn't do a program this year, so we want to do something additional next year, I think that's something that probably should come through in terms of the policy request from the board office. Just as, for instance, site readiness is a good example where we may only spend $500,000 out of the $2 million in 1 year. We may spend the full $2 million in 1 year. But what we don't typically do is if we didn't spend, let's say we only spent $1 million in a year, we don't typically then make the site readiness line item 3 million the next year. So I think it would be helpful for us to hear from Holly's perspective in terms of budgeting a certain amount for pitch night. Let's say that if we didn't do it this year, some feedback from board offices to say, hey, if we didn't do it this year, we understand there was a staffing issue. Next year, I'd like to see us do something a little bit different and maybe above and beyond what we were planning to do, where it would require the 50 plus another 50 percent. That would help us, just so we're not arbitrarily budgeting 100,000 for something that we think is going to cost 50. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I guess my thing was we would have helped some businesses this year with the 50, but we couldn't because we couldn't really pull it off. Then I want to help some other businesses. So now I got double the number of businesses. But I mean, I'll put that in there. The other thing that will help for me, and I asked for this last year, when we put these things in our budgets, I like to know what quarter, because we kind of leave it up to you to decide what quarter they come in. And I'll be honest with you, I feel that the policies, and I don't want to speak for the whole board, but I would say the elected folks that came with the policies, our things should be met with urgency. I see where outside groups come with something, big business come with something, and we rush. We got to hurry up. We got to get this done. We got to get that done. And they kind of dictate timetables. But the stuff we put in, I don't know who said that the stuff, I'm going to speak for me. I don't know who would say the stuff I put in is coming in the fourth quarter, because we in the fourth quarter. So usually the fourth quarter, we can't really hardly get nothing done because we're doing budgeting, and, we don't have the largest staff, around. So now all fourth quarter is about budgeting for next year. So I had already asked, when we pass this stuff, when we bring it in, I'd like to see what quarter is it going to come in. Yeah. Because that would help me, because I think fourth quarter, we shouldn't really try to be implementing too much, because we have to dedicate ourselves to the budget, and you got all the departments, and I mean that's a lot that you got to do.
Commissioner, that's a good question. It's a legitimate concern, and I will take the onus of that from the perspective of, I think, what we may want to look at doing, and I'll work internally to do, and that is to make sure that the communication on the implemented budget items is ramped up in 24, to make sure that the board is aware of what's going on each of those policy items from a quarter-to-quarter basis. For instance, I'll just conclude by saying that I know from the board's perspective, you may see, hey, we passed this in December, and then it looks like nothing happened until December, and the next time hearing about it, we had a staffing problem and couldn't get it implemented, right? Where, for instance, like on the property ownership program that Holly had mentioned, I know for a fact that Holly and her staff were doing a tremendous amount of research work on that throughout the year, because it turned out to be a very difficult legal issue to get through and to figure out how to structure a program that was legally viable, and that took a really long time. It's on me to make sure you guys are kept up to date with that type of activity going on, just so you see month to month what's going on. So I'll make sure that we find a different way of communicating that next year, so you're not doesn't look like a program just went dark and that we didn't do anything on it, that type of thing, because that's not fair to the staff, Holly, et cetera. So I'll work on that for the 24 budget cycle.
And I understand things like we didn't know about the staffing, so I get that part. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying as we fund these things, it just would be helpful when we pass them, because then we recash, and now we back having debates over stuff we passed in a budget maybe a year ago, because like you said, we may not remember, or timing. Like I wanted the youth sports, we're in the fourth quarter, so I can't put nothing or even suggest whether the colleagues go with it or not. I can't even suggest anything. But at the same time, now there's a study out about an arena. You get what I'm saying? So now my stuff gets knocked back because here comes an arena, and they may have all the big time money people running with that. But this was out there, and I at least want to know what it came back. But even when it's come back, I'm in another year, and I can't even make a move because I can't even recommend anything until I get the information. So I just thought that would have been done in the first quarter, so that I would have, it takes some time. So about a fourth quarter, I can make an intelligent recommendation. And so I don't know how we deal with those
Yeah, that
things.
was one, is that the board is aware, that was, I think, bid out in late second quarter maybe. But again, the same staffing issue hit on that one, so we didn't get it just took longer to get it implemented, which is, the board is aware it's now being implemented, so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because based on the findings, I don't know what I could put it, because I don't get to go with the budget again to after this. So then I would have to wait to 2025 before I could make a move, if at least recommend something. So I need some help with that, if possible, from your end, not Holly. But I don't have any major problems with the recommendations that are have been made. Yeah, and going back to what Vice President Treehouse indicated, yes, the site was ready at the gardens, but like, we didn't have anything like this. Now, I don't know if she would need it, but small business property ownership, Cynthia Booth, who is an African-American female, she went in and paid cash. So I don't want to give the impression that, these folks can't do it. There are people out there that can, that need help, and she was saying that there was no help, and she had to come out of her pocket, something like that, to put the money in, not on the readiness
The
part.
site readiness.
Yeah, the
part
site
is
readiness.
Really important.
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
program.
I'm not
Yeah,
putting down the
right.
site readiness.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying, even with the site readiness, luckily, they were willing to work with Cynthia Booth, but it would have been their prerogative. And then I want to put clear, because she'll make me want to be clear. She told me she put cash down and bought that property. So anyway, hopefully we can have more things like Cynthia Booth's project, which would be
absolutely right about
phenomenal. Okay, well, anything else? Any other questions? Holly, thank you very much.
much.
I think the
Your
list
feedback.
is the right list.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we have an update on the implementation of the disparity study recommendations and the new minority and women-owned business policies. We have Mr. Robert Bell.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for having me today. I want to share something with you before I start. Earlier this year, I gave you an update of the implementation, and where I talked about some general yearly numbers we wanted for minority and women-owned businesses, and what that would mean economically for the Hamilton County. I got a call the next day after I presented that to you from a minority vendor who does printing and promotional materials, and he called. And he was almost in tears. He was like, Robert, if you guys do those numbers on a quarterly and yearly basis, you're going to change the landscape of these businesses, those businesses that are represented in Hamilton County. And so I thanked him for it, and he said he was optimistic and all that kind of thing. Keep up the work. And then last week he calls, and this has something to do with what I'm going to tell you about. But last week he called and said, I got a call a few weeks ago from a big prime who said they wanted me to be on a subcontract with something they're going after with Hamilton County. And he said, I was surprised they called me. So he said, do you have a copy of the solicitation? So I sent him a copy of the solicitation for him to review. And he called me back the next day, and he sent me this, and you can't see it, but what it is the front page of the solicitation that tells when it was released, when the pre-bid meetings are, when the opening of the proposal is due, all the basic material, and on it too, clearly visible are the minority and women-owned business goals. He sent this to me and said, Robert, that's why they called me. And he said, when I talked to you earlier this year, I was hopeful, but I had to call you and tell you, and then they told him they got his name off the bold vendor list. He said, I had to call you, this was Friday, and tell you thank you for that, for what you guys are doing. Because he said, that's the first time I've ever seen this. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, because it's very important. Because when I was talking to different a lot of my peers in different cities and municipalities across, not really across the country, but especially in Ohio, the common theme was systemic change. What you needed was policies, tools, strategies, and practices to be able to get to this. And so that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, and that's what we've been doing this whole year, is doing that. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the disparity study. XBE policies include minority, women, and small business. So we shorted to XBE policies. I'm going to talk about documenting and reporting forms. We spent a lot of time on those. We spent a lot of time on training. And we spent a lot of time on the diversity and new procurement software that we're putting in. And I'll have to tell you, Jill Williams in the purchasing department and Will Hastings from the purchasing department has been invaluable with doing this. And this is the purchasing department put economic inclusion policies in their policies. And that's what's making this stuff strong. That's what's strengthening it for us. Okay. Before I go forward, I'm going to still go back a little bit because we looked at some numbers over the last couple of years, and those numbers are okay. I mean, it shows some good direction, but we're going into a new level now, and that's why I'm calling it a call for action for Hamilton County, for our vendors, for our businesses, for our community. It's a call for action for us to really achieve these goals that we set. We've done that, but go to the next slide, please. This is what we're having a call for action for. Those annual goals, and I told you this earlier this year, if we reach 16% minority and 13% women each quarter, each year, that's $14 million extra a year for those two groups, and over $70 million in 5 years. Now, I've been out in the community telling them this, and I've been doing presentations called A Call to Action for Hamilton County. So I wanted to do one for today for you, because it's very important for us to achieve this, because my department can't do it. My department can guide, lead, train, support, but who does it? Hamilton County departments do this. And we're starting to see that happen with the effort. But we had to put the strategies, practices, tools in place in order for that to happen. So I'm going to go over a few of those. And you already know the recommendations, and we're totally immersed in implementing those. And I'm not going to go through them all. We already know race and gender preference programs, inclusion goals in all categories, prompt pay with penalties, opportunities to match small purchases. Bidders must submit a utilization plan, and all that kind of thing. And those are in place in all the documents. And these are some of the documents that we put together. Go ahead. Yeah. And these are the core documents that we put together starting last year up until the beginning of this year. Those are the actual policy documents, whether it's 40 or 50 pages each, the small business and the minority policies. But we also have an administrative policy manual that we found other organizations and programs were doing that was really invaluable to help these organizations and these vendors and our own staff be able to take this. So they have an administrative manual besides going through all the training that we do. And we've done a lot of training. And this manual has been very helpful too, and they have this at their disposal. Okay. These are the forms. Goal setting form, worksheet, and this is a very valuable tool because it's based strictly on the availability data that the disparity study looked at over a 5.5-year spending period. And all the departments have to do is put in the description of the services in a column, put the estimated value of the service in another column, and it auto calculates what the MBE and WBE percentages are. And it's a beautiful, and company and the departments are running with this. It is doing very well. And now people understand how we're getting these goals and what that means. And so we're really excited about that. Solicitation package. This is it. Okay, it's 26 pages. It goes in every solicitation, and it's immersed in the solicitation, and the cover sheet tells you about what it says as far as the goals. And it's being used, and it's in every solicitation, and it's very important to the efforts that we're trying to do. Go back a little bit. Let me go this. In there, we have the compliance plan, and I've got the documents here. I can show it to you, but that's a true piece of instrument, that a tool where the not only the department uses a goal setting plan, but the contractor and the vendor does a goal compliance plan, where they have to put what they're going to do to achieve those goals that are in the solicitation at the time of submission. And we've gotten some feedback. Some people didn't like that at all, because they'd have to make decisions before. They said, well, that don't give us enough time. We said, we'll give you more time to do it, because that's important, because those are the systems that really change how we do things. When they have to submit what they're going to do with these groups at the time of submission of the proposal. And it's changing the game. They have to do a letter of intent, and when they got the subcontractors, because in my federal program, what happened a lot, subcontractors got changed all the time. You know what I mean? If they didn't have to tell you beforehand, you never really knew if they were going to have the same ones later. Well, now we know, and if they don't use it, there's a violation of contract. Now they can submit a substitution, and they have to report that to us, and we have to approve it. Then but they can do a application program waiver if they can't reach the goals. But we're very strict on program waivers. We just don't give them out willy-nilly. To make sure that they're making true efforts to do it. Pre-bid meetings. And everybody in my field now sees how important those are. We are getting to everyone we can, me and my staff. And I have to commend Gabriel Whaler, because she's really been a great help, my small business development coordinator, in making sure this happens. But what we do is we really talk to them and let them know how serious we are about these new XBE goals. And they're paying attention. I mean, I got claps one of the last ones I went to. They thanked me for coming in and telling them, right? So it's very important that we do as many of some pre-bid meetings as we can. We have a format for it. We stress the goals. We stress how they need to fill out the forms, and it's really working very well. The last part that I wanted to cover is the new purchasing software. We've been working on this since last year to get that in there. We implemented it. It should be done and implemented, totally ready to roll out by the end of November. And what we've done is we've done about, I think Jill told me we did 50 staff trainings on staff contract compliance just for this software. We started vendor training online. Vendor registration is going to kick off next week for all of the contractors that are on our bold list and other contractors who want to come in. We've still got two modules to finish: solicitation and bids, and the diversity spend analysis. And we're working to get that done by the end of November. And we've already done the outreach and events management, and those are fabulous. Those really are. It'll automate a lot. It's the first time that primes and subcontractors put their data into the system. And everybody confirms everybody else. That's the first time this is happening. But it's a best practice, and I've done that in my federal programs, and it's worked very well. And we're glad to have it here at Hamilton County now with this software. And the company is B2G now, and the city uses them, and so does a lot of organizations in our region. Next. And I just want to end my piece with what this means as far as equity framework. I think someone else came up and talked about DIEB, diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. But we've been training on the equity framework for almost 2 years now. And what that has done, and this is something that planning and development was involved in, so we not only have the opportunity, and this is a call to action for us, we not only have the opportunity to work with our contracts that we give out to make sure that they're diverse, and that everyone has a good chance of winning a contract, but also the things that we invest in. The Kiker Development was a project in Avondale that was financed through Community Development Fund. But I know that that planning and development has been spending a lot of time around looking at widening the net, attracting more diverse vendors and developers, and they're leveraging that money, and that's what we can do all over Hamilton County, is to do that. So we're really excited about it. It's all part of what we're doing. We're setting the framework, and when the gentleman called me and told me that firm got the contract, and he has an opportunity for a multi-year subcontract with that firm, and he said, Robert, I was hopeful, now you touched me. And I was so glad to hear that. Okay. Questions?
Thank you for the presentation, and thanks for all of your work. It's a lot of work that has to go in to get everything set up. My first question, though, is when you get a disparity study, which I've learned, because this is like, I don't know, my fourth one since being an elected official, it does have an expiration before you have to go back out. Is it 5 years?
5 to 7. 5 to 7. Yeah. They want to give you time to implement it and then to show some results. And the good thing is, there's two pieces of this. One is if you're making consistent, real change that is deemed sustainable, then you have a sunset that has to happen. But if you're showing not poor improvement or not improvement enough, you can increase the activities that you do to make sure that you're hitting those goals. So there's two arms to that.
Gotcha. And then based on the all of the components that you have to implement, the language and the contracts and all of those kind of things, when do you think we would start seeing kind of a good dent into that? Do you think
those pre-bid meetings that you saw, those are fully covered, fully vetted with all our new stuff? They have all the goals sitting there. We're ready. Those are going to be our first big kickoffs, and the 911 EMA building is part of that. So yeah, those are kicking off now. So we should see that in the next quarter, and especially the next 2 quarters.
Okay. And then on the prompt pay piece, but that's prompt pay for a general contractor
to the subs, right.
Gotcha.
We had a discussion with the auditor's office about that when we were putting the policies together. That was reviewed by the prosecutor's office and stuff, and we can't mandate it, but they said that they would try their best, to pay it as quickly as possible, and that's what we're going to keep pushing for. We got to do that, but we could put more of an onus on the primes to make sure they're not holding up the system as well.
Gotcha.
Because that happens a lot.
Yeah, gotcha. I just wanted people who are watching, because they may look at, city council. I was the author of the prompt pay law, but unlike with the county, we're elected individually. Right. So the payment system would have to come from another department. Right. It would not come from the Board of County Commissioners. However, I wanted to, for example, wanted to make sure that the people that are doing business with us, I was at Allen Temple AME Sunday, and a gentleman stopped me. He owns a group home, African American, and concerned about payment, our prompt payment system. So even though I know the final check is cut by the auditor, I just wanted to make sure that we are doing all of our departments that fall under us. Right. The paperwork and all that is somehow, because we can't be saying prompt pay to these general contractors, and there's not prompt. We're 120 days or more for people who do business, who are already doing business with us.
Right. And I would say, let us know. Have these folks call me, call my department, and we can try to look into it. I know that there are times when certain departments have a rough time with getting that, especially when we've got to bring down federal funds for it and stuff like that, like JFS. But to let us know, and we'll look into it as much as we can, because the auditor said that they would really work hard to make sure that they're not too much of a clog in the system with this thing. But we also want to make sure that the primes are too, because that can kind of get really unwieldy if you're not really on top of it.
Gotcha. We will be looking at some point soon, when we look at our stadiums, because we are deemed with the taxpayers deemed with the upkeep. I want to just make sure those processes, or will we be able to make some kind of dent with it? Because the original project, of course, none of us were here.
Right.
The original project of the stadium, it was a big deal. I remember the Baptist Ministers Conference, some of those people have, gone on and passed away, unfortunately, but there are some still alive. But they went down and it became the, worst in terms of inclusion. I think it was almost zero.
Yeah.
So
You're talking about our stadium.
our stadium, the first one.
Yeah.
Now it's called Paycor. But I was talking to Mr. Aludo and making sure that we don't relive that again. Because, again, that still does fall up under the county.
Right,
You
right.
would be
So they'll have to
hopefully
follow,
involved.
right. And they'll have to follow the same policies. And these forms, these tools, and these reporting functions are under our policy.
Gotcha. I do have one other question, though. For those who have, for example, I think on the banks, I've certainly, I know I wasn't here, I don't know if my other colleagues were here, but there's contracts that have been given that are lifetime. It's the life of the banks, and the banks continues to continue. I just want to make sure when they're doing things on there, would this be included, or is Mr. Bell included with them, working with them? Are we doing, I guess, more, we got a lot of stuff, parking lots, different things that we're doing. Some things may be coming up soon with the stadium, some things that we have to fix in this. Would that be included in the policy?
Yeah, so if it's a county bid project, then it would be underneath the county policies that Mr. Bell is referring to.
Right.
If it is something that is bid out for something that is city-county on the banks, then it's going to fall under the joint banks inclusion purchasing policy, which is different than what we have right now. So if we want that to be different and reflect a different standard, that's something we'll have to talk with our friends over at the city about. But if it's something that the county controls, whether it's something on, say, the lot where the Black Music Walk of Fame is, which is county controlled solely, if it's something at one of the stadiums, that will fall under county policy directly.
Right. Yeah, and so I would really like to see us talk to the city about looking into that, at least to investigate it, because there's still a lot of opportunities there as well. But yeah, like he said, if we're paying for it ourselves and not part of it, that's what we're going to expect.
And I would say, not to interrupt Mr. Bell, I have not talked with the city about this. The joint banks policy related to purchasing has been around for a while. The city's perspective has changed on these things as well. There may be an interest in looking at that. So
we'd be happy to
take a look at it.
And Phil Banks and I are putting together a meeting just to have an initial discussion on what the possibilities are.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And does that include what you call, I think it's not single source, but what's the one where we don't have to bid out anything? When you have a
Proprietary or
not proprietary. It might be sole source. I'm not sure.
sole
But,
source.
For example, you indicated to me like THP and all of them, they have it's not a bid out thing all the time. What is that called? I can't, my mind is escaping me now.
When we have a contractor that we always deal with, that's under the county.
Right.
One of our architectural partners. That
Yeah,
type of
like you
thing.
said,
So-
THP and all those are already bid out. They're the group. But then you have certain things that I will put under them and we won't be having to bid out. So how do you?
Oh, okay. So like, if there's
Yeah,
a
how do we make
professional
sure that-
services agreement or something like that, or
Not professional services. THP, is that professional?
Yeah.
Well, you got architects, but then you got Messer, you got others.
so you have our architectural partners, and then from time to time they may pull consultants underneath them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, or not necessarily consultants, but if they do the work, I don't want to put it out there, but the thing that we're looking at doing, possibly, some things that have to happen with that stadium, and it's below a certain amount. I can talk to you later about it. I may think of it when my colleagues are talking, but it's not sole. It might be sole source, but whatever they are, they don't have to bid anymore. And I'm just trying to figure out how do we make sure that this is in there with goods and services or what have you, because we didn't have this when they got the deal. So that's all.
I'll give you some good news.
Okay.
This is the first year. We do those multi-year contracts with A&E firms, right? this is the first year we're going to have economic inclusion goals in the ones, because we did an RFQ, and we're going to narrow it down to and select 2 or 3 A&A firms. But in those contracts, they know now that those goals are going to be in the contract. First time we've ever done that.
That's awesome.
I'm on the committee. We'll make sure.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Open it up, Vice President Drew.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Robert. Yeah, this is leaps and bounds ahead of where we were just a few years ago. And I know it's because of the disparity study, and it gives us the ability to be where we are now, but it is also the work of yourself and your department that has gotten us to this point. So I appreciate that you've moved forward aggressively when it comes to the will of this board to move on the disparity study and what we can accomplish now that we have it in place. And the Economic Inclusion Council, too. I don't want to forget about them. They made a recommendation. We put it into policy a number of years ago, and here we are. So it's been a couple years in the making, but I'm delighted that we're at a point now where we can really move forward on some of these goals, which gets to my only question. When you talked about the annual goals, the MBE at 16%, the WBE at 13%, can you help me better understand how you arrive at those numbers?
Well, after the disparity study was done, and we went through selecting the goals, which we wanted to be based really close to the availability of those businesses in our relevant market area, because that gives us strict scrutiny by the federal courts that we really have something to base those numbers on, and it puts us at less risk. So we wanted to do that. So I had them, the disparity study, use those goals that we selected, and I had them go and do an analysis of the past 5-year spending and the future 5.5-year spending, and I said, what would be the economic impact of those goals? That's where those numbers came from. The 14 million a year and the 70 million in 5 years. But those at 16% and 13% is kind of an average of, it's an annual aspirational goal that we have, but it really is based on the availability. And that's what gave us the legitimacy to do it like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so I guess to your point then, if we were to increase the availability of these, of the vendors or the providers, then those goals would shift and they'd go up.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. And we're doing that. I think we've increased our bold lists, especially since Gabra's been here. Gabra has been here about 200 companies over the last year and a half. So, and we've been out there, because I'm out there all the time, promoting it and doing workshops and stuff. We do a thing called Doing Business with Hamilton County and the community, and so we're out there a lot, and they're signing up, and they're looking to get certified if that's what they want to do, and if not, we still put them on there because I still want to give them work.
Right, and so the goal is that we have more availability, right, in the community. And so, how often then do you review the percentages?
Well, they don't have a set time, but again, because they're based on the numbers that they came up with over the last 5.5 years, we would need to stick with those for a few years.
Would it come, as Commissioner Reese asked you about the 5-year cycle or 7-year cycle of something like this? Is that the point at which you take a look at these goals?
You take a
are these scale numbers?
Have you been able to achieve them? Do you think you've overachieved, or do you think you've underachieved? And then that's what that next study will give you is the data and the data to decide that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dumas.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm looking at the total minority spend, and anytime it goes up, that's a great thing. Of course, we have much more to do, and you know that. When we look at the column, the annual goals, you have MBE 16%, WBE 13%. How does that compare to the city of Cincinnati, or do they even have goals? Their goals was around 20%, but they had not been able to achieve that in a few years, and that's why they've done another study. Okay, is my understanding. But they're doing pretty well. I mean, it's not that they're not doing, the teens or something like that, but they were a little. Well, they're doing another study, and they've just done another study, and so they'll be establishing some new goals. So I don't want to get too much into that thing, because I know how it is when you're in between studies. I was just wondering, have they gotten any input from your office as far as, your thoughts on disparity.
We talk all the time. I mean, they're one of my community partners. They have a new director, and Valeria, one of their staff person, and me, we're partners and peers. So we talk and we share information all the time. And we support each other. Yeah. I try to get their businesses work. They try to get our businesses work and that kind of thing. So we're always on top of it.
That's great.
And they do a good job. They really do. They have a lot of the same forms and requirements that we have. And so I'm trying to beat them. See, I want to be better than them.
Okay.
So we're kind of competitive with each other.
Well, and that's good that we're talking, so we can learn something from each other. Under the recent pre-bid meetings, it's funny, when I came in 2019, the first thing I said is, can I sit in the pre-bid meetings? And then I know Jeff had to ask the prosecutor's office was it illegal and all of that, as I think I said previously. And then I remembered the fact that even if I sit in, the people that are in those meetings, how did they learn about the pre-bid meetings? What are we doing to make sure more people know about the pre-bid meetings? And I was thinking, well, they're already in the meetings, so obviously they had some kind of contact.
Yeah.
But how do we expand that?
First, they go with the list of people that signed up that they were interested in the bid, and I know purchasing has its own list of vendors that are in the field, and then I do announcements through the bold directory of those, depending on what type of project it is, to let them know about it, and then it's on the website. And I tell all my vendors, don't rely on me. Go, sign into Periscope and BidSync, and look at the solicitation so that you'll know when these pre-bid meetings are. And we need to, my department, everybody needs to do a better job, especially getting the subcontractors to the pre-bid meetings.
And it's gotten, in my opinion, so much better because, as you were saying, the bold list.
Yes.
I don't know if it was there. I don't think it was there when I first came. I'm not sure.
It had just started.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to lastly say that, Mr. Bell, you have done so much as it relates to this diversity, inclusion, employment area, so important. We know that it takes time for things to get better. This has been, the lack of inclusion has been for many, many years. So just want to thank you for this. At the same time, I'm thinking, why do we still have to discuss this? And the question is, why do we have to discuss it? Because we have to discuss it. Because it's still an issue at this date in 2023. So, yeah, go ahead.
But it's not just me. I mean, it's Frank and the Human Resources Department. They're doing some fabulous work. And we've been in discussions with them. They've been in discussions with Frank used to meet regularly a lot of times with the Economic Inclusion Advisory Council. Jill and them are putting in new proposals in the purchasing manual and new policies. I mean, they're really supportive of what we're doing. My department can't do it all.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of that. But someone or someone's have to provide leadership and a vision. And so, I thank you for all the work that you've done and how important it is to you and your staff.
Thank you very much. You're gracious. You're very gracious. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, Jeff.
Just very quickly, and again, just a kudos to Robert, because now that we will get we are, as Commissioner Driehaus, I think it was, said, we are in a much better place from a systems perspective now, thanks to the board, the guidance of the board, and establishing this as a policy vision. But so while we're in a much better place system-wide, that we know with the tools of the disparity study that the results will now follow incrementally. Going back and looking with one of the first slides that Robert put up, in 2020, our total minority spend in this county was 3%. In 2021, 11%. In 2022, 13%. And that's without the tools of the disparity study. So that's based upon the vision of this board, the execution that Robert has had just in getting out and getting with departments, making sure they understand the importance of it and how to execute on it. And that was with one hand tied behind his back, right? Because that was with no tools. So now that we have these tools, really excited to see where we go from here. So I want to thank the board, but wanted to give kudos to Robert for what he's been able to do with that hand behind tied behind his back. So.
Well, I don't seem modest to you. My wife don't think I'm modest. Okay.
Thank you so much, Robert, for all of your work.
Your support.
And I just stand right there one more time. I want the camera to come on you.
Okay.
This is historic. I mean, that we didn't get any, this didn't make, I don't even think it made the business newspaper. But for this county, for the first time in history, to have an MBE, WBE, and small business program, it's remarkable. And my goal is to just make sure, even in your budget, that we have some marketing dollars, because we can't rely on press conference and hope somebody shows up. And I remember it was got back to me. I said, well, I wonder why this, because we had the big thing in February. You came and place was packed with people that wanted to hear about this. So why didn't it get picked up? Somebody said, well, they told us inclusion doesn't get clicks. I said, what? We're talking about commerce. We're talking about tax-paying businesses and growing them and equal opportunities. And this is historic. I just wanted to take our time. I know we ran through all this, but to just see this moment in history, it is historic for Hamilton County. So I wanted to say, maybe making sure that as we're looking at budget, some kind of marketing or whatever you need on marketing, because I think the word needs to get out that we have an open door policy in Hamilton County to do business. If you got a service, we've got needs, and how do we come together? So I wanted to really acknowledge you and thank you. And I also wanted to thank Jeff Aludo, because there were some things that we came up with. Each of us had some different things about how can you break up a contract and maybe make it smaller. Can we get even a vending machine? Can we get someone who does our bonds? And you came with a company that's qualified as doing our bonds, which is huge. You don't hear a lot about this, but I just wanted to say that this is a historic moment, and I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank Jeff as well, and the board, because we push with ideas on different things. Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do this? And I said, let's go after the low-hanging fruit while we're waiting on a disparity study. The goal is to have it in our DNA, where you don't have to legislate it, because it's just the way we do business. It's just who we are. And so I just appreciate you, Mr. Bill, taking this on, and your staff.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, some more good news. Our Hamilton County Office of Small Business. Mr. Forte, thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners and administrators. I am thankful to be here today to share with you a little bit about the Office of Small Business. I'm going to take you through about a dozen slides or so, and it's really going to capsulize the last 12 months of some of our activity. So if I can. You turning this. Okay. So the Office of Small Business, we've been up and at it unofficially for about 16 months. Officially, think about May is our starting point and being real public with it, but the work was going on prior to that. So just a quick soundbite about me, those that don't know. My background is a long corporate career. I've been a consultant, and I've also been an entrepreneur, and also helped start up a business. So that's what's given me my passion to really drive this effort in Hamilton County. I'm preaching to the choir here, but I did think it was important for those that aren't as close to this to see a little bit of data about small businesses and how important they are. And really, if you look at those last two bullet points, for every dollar spent at a small business, 67 cents stays in our local communities. That's on average, they say. And Hamilton County is a fertile ground for small businesses, simply because it's a diverse economy. We don't depend on one type of economy or another. It's pretty diverse, and that makes a fertile ground for small businesses. So here's some of the reality that I share with small businesses. We've got over 21,000 small businesses here in Hamilton County. Clearly a mass. Small businesses have grown across the U.S. And when small businesses fail, it's usually, it's usually because they don't have a plan. They just don't have a plan, and they misread demand. And what do you mean misread demand? The question becomes, are they answering an unmet need? And that's one of the things I say to small business owners that I talk to that are thinking about starting a business up. Are you answering an unmet need? And if so, who is that need designed to target to? So who are you selling, which is that next bar over? Who are you selling to? Make sure you understand that. And another barrier for small business is, we call it the runway is too short. In other words, when you think about small businesses and you think about them trying to get started, do they have enough cash to allow them to launch that business and really take off? And oftentimes we find that lack of cash flow is a death knell in some instances to small businesses. So, how do we make sure that there's access to funding, or they know about access to funding? And if you look at that percent down there that's highlighted, half of our small businesses that start up don't make it after 5 years. And those are some of the reasons why. And that's where we come into play. Next slide. So we tell small businesses we are basically the front door to your resourcing. In Hamilton County, we've got a lot of resources that are doing things for small businesses, which is really good. The ecosystem is pretty rich, but the challenge for small businesses is really finding that particular resource when they need it. And so the way to think about what we've been doing over the last 12 months is connecting small businesses to the right resources, providing coaching, mentoring, outreach at different engagements to allow them to understand what our resources are about. Partnerships with all of these folks that are out there doing things for small businesses, and really trying to leverage that as a mass, and collaboration. So our focus is pretty clear: 0 to 10 employees. Not to say that we're going to turn a business away if they have a few more than that. Can't have less than 0, but a few more than that. And that's really what our focus is. Small Business Day is when we really formally launched this office, and we had nearly 1,000 businesses registered for Small Business Day. The feedback that we got from that event for small businesses was phenomenal. 100% of those respondents to our survey said they were favorable to the event, and 94% of them said they received information they could use right away that could help them. So the challenge for us is to figure out how we do this in even a bigger way in the future, and how do we build on it. Next. Some of the key learnings that we've had over the past 12 months, I think one of them is Small businesses, micro businesses, I call them, have a common thread. And they really are in need of coaching, funding, training, and connection to resources. That's common across all of them. Back office is an opportunity, and it's common across all of them. The deal is this for a micro business. You have to wear about 8 different hats, and you have no choice. You have to wear them to be successful. And so there's not always time to think about some of those fundamental things like, do I have a plan? Do I know what my cash flow is? Do I know what I need to make every month to pay the bills? And so those are opportunities that this office is certainly, trying to gear up to help those small businesses. Next slide. Here's sort of what our outreach looked like this past year, just to give you an idea. We connected with just under 1,000 businesses out of the office itself. Unique business contacts were 628, and the businesses that we really document assisting. Now, I'm saying not to say that a lot of those other businesses we didn't help, but those ones that we were working with over multiple contacts is what we documented as businesses assisted. And 60% of them were women, 42% are minority. And so that's kind of what our assistance numbers look like. 100% of that assistance is coaching, but you can split it in some of those other areas, strategic planning. I was just with a business owner this morning, and we were trying to figure out how, for his business, how does he evaluate that business as he's thinking about some venture capital folks coming in? But anyway, training and education, referrals, so that's sort of what the assistance looked like over this year. Our business relief grant, 866 applications reviewed, 450 approved, and 397 funded so far. So we're still in process. Still funding some of those grants, and still making sure that we get that money in the hands of those business owners who need it. Average grant amount was about $9,285 per business. And we funded about $3.68 million so far. This is an eye chart, but I just wanted to show you some of the other, what I would call small business service partners or ecosystem. We work with all of them in some shape, form, or fashion. So we leverage them where we can. Certainly, I think the opportunity is how do you shape programs that are going to be able to help these small businesses sooner versus later. And then here's some of the collaboration or activities that our office has been involved with. It just gives you a list, and you can just read down that list. If you look down, I think on the 6th one down, that was a leadership development panel that I sat on with Commissioner Dumas, and it was really about sharing some financial readiness information to small businesses in that environment. Last week, I was a panel speaker at Centrifuge, and to talk to small businesses about access to capital and how you get ready for that. So that's just a listing of some of the activities that we've been involved with to make sure that this office stays prominent in those businesses' mind. Next slide. And so what's next for this office? That really is the key. What is next? What can we do more of? And one of the things is in-depth coaching. That includes direction setting, financials, funding, all of that. And if we can provide more in-depth coaching, we give these small businesses a better chance of survival. And funding, boy, this whole funding piece, there's a lot of grants, loans that come up from time to time. Some are federal, some are state, some are local. How do you keep track of that in real time? And if we were able to do more of that, I think we can help more of these small businesses. Training, obviously, providing that targeted training, partnerships, expanding our strategic partnerships with some of these service providers to come together to figure out what these small businesses need in terms of training and so forth. Continued integration into county programs, procurement opportunities, technical assistance, leveraging what we started with things like Small Business Day. How do you make it bigger, better for these small businesses? Systems. There's opportunity to create systems for small business that makes it more efficient for us. Right now, we're able to touch on probably about 1% of the businesses that are here in Hamilton County. And so the question becomes is, how do we create efficiencies that allow us to touch a lot more? And I think that is one of the opportunities that we have. Data, how do we make sure that we're tracking everything that we do, and that we're also figuring out what the results and the outcomes are of anything that we do with small businesses. So how do we make sure we do more of that in the right way? So that's what I wanted to share with you, kind of where we are, what we've done so far, the foundation that we've built, and some of the opportunity that I think we have going forward. And if you need to get to me, you can get to me those 4 ways.
Awesome. Thank you for the presentation. And small businesses, they're the backbone in the future. I mean, these major, humongous companies that are breaking into smaller companies or getting rid of divisions, and people saying, I need to get my own business, or those who just have a desire. My goal, though, is what I have found is that there are a lot of programs out here. Everybody's got a program, and everybody's offering, quote unquote, technical assistance. But the question sometimes, I know we have businesses that need not saying they don't need the coaching, but there are some businesses that are ready to get moving. So after you've told me what to do, how to do it, it takes funding to do it. And I definitely want to commend our board, because we've done over $14 million with the ARPA grants and helping a lot of businesses. One of the things I thought was to be important is to have an Office of Small Business. Obviously, we don't have, just to have a standalone office in here doesn't make sense if we can have it like we do economic development with Alloy that has access to other funding. So when they come to you, like you said, there's a whole menu of options. It's not sending a person around town, ripping and running. And I do want to commend you, because I have had some people that we have sent that way who have gotten help and are moving. They're in your coaching services. I know Ebony J Media now has opened up the first, I believe, female owned media school inside of one of your facilities. So she needed space, and what you offer through your incubation there is incredible. One of the things I wanted to look at as we move forward, I understand you're a one-man shop, and in there it's asked for an additional person. But a couple of things I wanted to make sure of. One is I wanted to be able to have and maybe it's the conference, or maybe it becomes the state of small business in Hamilton County, where it's we do the small business just like we did last time, but there's a state of where are we, because I want to kind of get my hands around. My goal is to reposition us, Hamilton County, Ohio, as the #1 county for small businesses, meaning I want to go there because it's affordable. I've reduced the barriers. They've got help. There's a one-stop. We've got an ecosystem that's second to none, that's not fragmented, that has, whether it's the technology I can get on here and it just gets me right to what I need. That's what I'm looking for us to be #1. That being said, I'm also looking at, in your budget, I don't know how we do it. Said the same thing with Robert. We need some type of marketing, because when we do market and we cast that wide net where everybody knows about it, it's your decision if you want to come or not, we tend to have great turnout, participation, like you said, 90% of the people saying, hey, this really helped me, and these were people we probably weren't even really seeing, because we've got a new attitude in terms of Hamilton County. We're saying, hey, we want to do business. This board is like, hey, we're here to do business with you. That hadn't always been the case. So people just walk past Hamilton County. They say, oh, they're not trying to do no business. And I'm talking about all races, if you're a small business. So I just want to put in your where do we go next, I think a repositioning of being able to have an annual report on small businesses in Hamilton County, from the storefront to, retaining and losing, so we really kind of know what we're dealing with, and we can intelligently walk. When we're talking and we're out talking in different places, we're able to have the numbers and what has worked, what does not work. So I think that is important. So, like I said, some kind of annual report, state of small business in Hamilton County. There could be an annual report that's put out by the Office of Small Business. The other thing that I would like to see from a marketing standpoint is we got this PowerPoint, people are watching. Of course, we're saying we're helping people. You're saying we're helping people. But we're in the days of digital. We want to see a video. There should be some video out that is produced that we could put on our websites, our platforms, with some testimonies, some photos. We had 1,000 people. But if you didn't attend, I want you to see that we had 1,000 people, and that was a good place to get feedback from people, testimonies from people. And that's something I'm pushing for all programs that we have, because then you can hear, don't take our word for it, listen to the customer base. So I think there needs to be some type of video that can be, shown that talks about what we have. But then, of course, ending with, if you need help, contact, your office. So those are things that I think of off the top of my head. And, of course, we'll have you all coming in, a couple times to let people know kind of how we're doing and what we're doing, like we're doing here today, because you guys are doing a lot of good work. Small Business Week, I'm glad you got that on there. I want us to do more. I want to see a social media digital presence. So when we talk about Small Business Week, what is the Office of Small Business doing? I'm sure you're doing something, but we got to work collectively. Even though you're out in the Alloy building, you're connected to us. So we want to have a little more connectivity so that we're able to market that Small Business Week. Here's what Hamilton County is doing. And I'm sure you got a lot of stuff you're doing, but just trying to figure out that second person or whatever, we need a marketing component to that person that keeps us as a board informed as well as the public. So those are things that I would see, but I think it's been off to a very good start. These numbers are very good numbers. It shows that there's a need, and I think you have articulated that need. And maybe I want you to let us know on the back you said that they need help on the backside. So what if there was something where there was help on the backside? If you're part of this, the back end part, we've got, I don't know, you get an hour with the back end that would help you with this at no cost. I'm just throwing that out. If you're saying that that's a need. I know we've got the grants, but is there something like a grant with a component that helps you with the backside?
Well, if you think about that business advisory program that ECDI is basically administrating, it does have that component to it, and so we've referred a number of businesses to that, and it is a if they have to apply. But they accept 95% of the applications that go through. But once you do, there are services available that include things like marketing help, things like bookkeeping help, free license for a year to one of the web developers, things like that. So we do have that in existence. The question becomes is how do we ramp that up? How do we ramp that up? Yeah.
And that's something that, is that one of, I know we contracted with them. Is that one of the services, Mr. Aludo? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So we funded that service.
Yes.
You're saying we need to figure out how to ramp it up so it's seamless?
Well, not only that it's seamless, there's more capability behind it to be able to take more businesses into the program. Resourcing is only so much, and if we can figure out a good way to do that consistently, and that we're running these businesses through. There's clear metrics on what needs to be done, and then they move out, more move in. So I think that's the opportunity to make it seamless. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's great. Maybe we'll have them come in too, because we funded it. It'd be great to hear what they've done, what they've seen on the ROI side. So that's great. Vice President Driehaus, I'll open it up.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. As a person who has been a small business owner twice, manager and owner of two small businesses, what I know about small business owners is that they're busy. Right? Yes. They're busy, and because they're running their businesses, and I was the vice president of the merchants group out in my community, and it was so hard to get meeting times because we were also busy running our businesses, we couldn't make a meeting time. And so for those businesses that can't attend an event or can't come away from the business during the day, how do you reach out to them, and how do they get connected with some of the coaching and the other services that you refer to?
Yeah, I think that is a challenge for small business owners because they have to do so much. And when they're gone, the businesses basically either stop or slow down significantly. And so that's one of the things that I think we're going to need to look at in the future as to, is it something that we could do on an on-site basis? Is it office hours that you can have that they know that, gosh, if I can break away for, 2 hours on X day, that I can get the help I need. So I think those are all opportunities, and they're right on in terms of how small business operates and some of the things we got to do to enable them. I hear you.
I know it's challenging.
Yeah.
I know you've given this some thought and given some thought to what strategies you can employ to engage as many small businesses as possible. We ended up doing something in the early evenings just because nobody could break away during the day, and we were still busy on the weekends. And so it became an issue of, what time was best for somebody that's running a retail shop or a restaurant or a coffee house or, whatever it was. And my other question is, So as you think through then some of these small businesses, and if you do have the opportunity to touch and engage with them, when you say coaching and other things, help me better understand what you're referring to. If I'm a small business owner, what is the most common thing? Is it marketing? Is it the books? Is it is it the cash flow? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is a few things. It's a few things, and let me give you just a couple quick examples. You know, got a business, small business owner, just working with, didn't have, said, hey, I want to be able to apply for credit, and I'm not sure exactly what I need. So the next question to that business owner is, okay, what do you have in terms of financial records? And secondly, do you have anything that explains what you do on paper? You know, oftentimes, it's all up here, and they're operating, doing a lot of things, but don't have anything to be able to, market themselves if they do need that financing. So that's a part of that whole coaching piece, and helping them work through taking this and putting it on paper, and doing it in a way that is efficient for them, but at least it gets them, the 80 for 90 on what they need to move forward. And then, besides that whole planning piece, it's another example is, hey, is there anywhere that I could figure out how to get certification? I think my business needs to be certified. Can you help me do that? And we just, create the path to make sure that they get connected to those folks who, can help them do that. So it's a number of different things, but, I see fundamentally and primarily for small businesses, it's that whole access to capital, business planning, and then after that, it's operations and keeping track of what you do and how you do it. You ask a lot of these small business owners, who do you owe? They have to think about that. Who owes you? Have to think about that. So how do you make that in a way that you can track it, so you know what's coming in, so you know what's going out, you know what your cash flow is? So that's all under that coaching umbrella.
That's great. And I think we all stand at the ready to help push this out, as far and wide as possible, to make sure that people are aware that the service exists through your office, and that help is out there in case there's a small business that needs that kind of mentoring or coaching, or just business acumen. As you say, writing up a business plan, it would be invaluable to somebody that just started up and didn't understand that they needed to have all these things in place as they got started in order to go get some financing or do whatever they need to do. So thank you for what you do, and as I said, I think we all stand at the ready to help promote what you're doing and make sure that the community is aware of what's available. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Dumas.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And the board realized, of course, as everyone should, that small businesses are the fabric of the middle class. I know originally when we started, I'm also a small business owner, and at the beginning we said for funding it would be 1 to 10 employees you had to have. And I said, well, what about the sole proprietors that don't have any employees? And so I'm just so glad that we were able to include those people that don't have any employees. The numbers speak for themselves. Lots of hard work has been done, and so I certainly appreciate it. And we knew that this was an area we had to go into because that's why we approved the 4 rounds of funding. I think was said earlier, about 14 million. But I also wanted to compliment you on the partnerships, the diverse partnerships that you're using strategically to make this happen. So thank you so much, and look forward to more evidence of more small businesses and what you're doing. This is so critical to us moving forward, and those who have a dream to be able to snatch onto their dreams and have you guys help you answer the question I had that Commissioner Driehaus brought up about, what if I just come in with a great idea? And so you can help me, or you can help whoever to put this from your head to the paper. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everything, and I understand it's hard being a one-person operation, but I think we had to start somewhere, and I think we're off to a very good start. There are a number of small businesses that we are losing and have lost, and that's why I think that state of small businesses, because then we can talk about some of the reasons behind it. Some could not recover from COVID in terms of their businesses. Just like when the recession happened, I said, well, what happened to the people we lost in terms of businesses? And we just kind of moved on. But this will help give us some metrics and understanding what some of those issues are. So thank you very much.
Right.
Very impressed, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Vice President Driehaus, do you have anything?
I just, one last thing very quickly. In the news, there has been some commentary about the Veterans Commission, and we established their budget. And since we're in the budget process, I don't know if they were already scheduled to come in, but I'm hopeful that we will hear from them just to get more information about what's going on with their budget.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I did send an email to Mr. Aludo as well to reach out to them. I would like for them to come on Thursday because this is such a issue that has risen. I want to say, I don't want to speak for everyone, but my understanding, I know when I first came in, I said, hey, I want to do more money for veterans. And I was told by Mr. Aludo that you had said the same thing as well as Commissioner Dumas. He said, everybody that comes in gets elected says, how can we do more? And there's a federal program of some grants that are available. And I think on November 18th, we're trying to have a resource event. Congressman Landsman had reached out at the public library to take applications, but that was before this story came out. And I know that we take this very seriously because I was looking at, wait a minute, $31 million. And I had asked Mr. Aludo about this, and I think we need to get to the bottom of it because I think all of us want as much out there to veterans. And that's why when Congressman Landsman, he's on the Veterans Committee, and he was saying, I want to do something. I said, I want to do, he talked about these grants. I was like, this would be great, come on. And this is before this news broke. So Mr. Aludo, I just wanted to give you a chance if you wanted to say something. But Thursday, I'd like for them to come in because I don't want this festering out, or some representative. If the head person can't come, can a representative come? Because we are in the budget process, and all of us have wanted to put more money toward this effort. And so I just want to make sure the right information is out there.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we'll certainly reach out and figure out the best way to communicate to get the Veterans Commission plugged into a presentation here. So we'll do that tomorrow to see what we can figure out there. As it relates to your question about the 31 million, I just want to, for anyone who may be watching at home, first and foremost, the Veteran Services Commission is a separate entity of county government. So for folks watching at home, it's not a department of the Board of County Commissioners where that department would report here. There is a Veteran Service Commission. The director reports to that commission. There was some numbers listed in the article that was run about 31 million returned back to the general fund or something like that. There hasn't been that much appropriated by this board to the Veteran Services Commission in terms of what has been asked for. So there has not been an amount that has been turned back in. I think what it was referring to was the amount of statutory authority that the Veteran Services Commission has the ability to request under state law. It wasn't a matter of how much was actually appropriated to them and that they return. They've historically had a budget of around $1 million. Veterans relief payments have been budgeted around $400,000 a year, and they've historically come in under that. So it's not a question of the board not allocating enough money to veterans or anything like that. But based upon the article, we'll reach out, see what we can get the representative from veterans in to provide some information for the board.
Thank you. And I just want to go back to, because we're learning that structure. The Veteran Services Board, you're saying, is its own entity. It doesn't fall up under this board. And the commission, who appoints the commission?
So the Common Pleas Court appoints the commission based upon recommendation from various congressionally designated veterans organizations in the county. So while they appoint the membership of that, I'm not even sure at this point what direct authority the court even has outside of just appointing the Veteran Service Commission board members. It's that board ultimately that has the authority over that operation. But more to come on this.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because I think when I heard it, I'm like, okay, how is this set up? What is it? And we do not make board appointments to that commission. And then you're saying that commission then is, they have a director, and that director reports to the commission. And then they send in budget requests, and the requests that have been sent in, we have said, can we do more?
Great question. Yeah. So and I'm sorry, I should have hit that initially. That yes. So they'll send in a budget request. This board and we budget based upon trend, right? I mean, we budget based upon what a department historically spends. To do anything else would be pulling dollars from other operations of the county. So we budget based upon what a department has historically spent. But in the case of veterans, because of the nature of this area under the revised code, the board has historically passed a resolution every year that has said, hey, we're budgeting based upon the trend, but if there's anything else that's needed in terms of veterans relief payments, et cetera, that all the commission has to do is approach the board, and we would fund that. So this board has said that routinely over the years. So I think a more in-depth conversation is needed with Veteran Service Commission, because based upon the article, I'm not even going to point a finger at the Service Commission and say that there's always another side to the story, and I think it would be good to pull them in and hear that story. So.
Okay, we've made a request for Thursday, if possible, so we can be updated. Commissioner, did you have something?
No, I just think it would be helpful to get that information, because there's quite a bit of confusion around this, and we have always fully funded this and said, whatever you need, let us know. So I think it would be very, very helpful to get some information from them.
Yes, I think sooner than later. Commissioner Dumas.
I totally agree that we need to hear from them, and it's just a matter of courtesy. I mean, I've been here, how long have you been here, 7 years?
7 years.
Yeah, and have never seen the gentleman who has been the director since 1991, and just a matter of courtesy to come in, meet the new commission board, even though we don't have the direct responsibility, but so I'll be glad to see him and not a designee, so that's what I'm going to say. So
we put the request out, Jeff. We put that request out for Thursday, and I think it's important because, like you said, it's misinformation or different information, and people are calling all of our offices, and all of us have been supportive. Like I said, I heard about these grants, and I said, Congressman Lansbury, what can we do? We were trying to have something November 18th at the public library for the federal grants. So I wanted to make sure that, we have all said, and we're in our budget process now, and I think we've all at some point asked about how can we do more for our veterans. So yeah, I would love to meet too, as well as you've indicated. And so, Mr. Ludo, I hope we can make that happen on Thursday. Okay. All right, if there's no further business to come before us, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.